when you're watching Black Panther Wakanda Forever again or revisited. So I rewatched Black Panther Wakanda Forever, and I have to say, this movie still holds up. It still really works well. I think that huge, immense credit, all of it, most of it, a huge portion of it goes to Ryan Coogler and his ability to write the story into a new direction, putting it into the way that we see it now, and the movie that we got is the best movie that we could have possibly ever gotten, you know what I mean? Without, obviously, T'Challa. I think that while I still feel like T'Challa's story wasn't over and that the character should have been recasted or should have still been a part of the story, I know it would have been really disappointing, and I guess there really is no replacing Chadwick Boseman. What he did with the character and how much it matters that he was a part of that story, There's no going back, or there's no rechanging it or recasting it. I think it's a great choice that they didn't recast T'Challa, but on the other hand, on a personal or on a story aspect, I think that T'Challa needed to live on and still be a part of this MCU world. But anyways, I think that despite all of that, the story still holds up, and I really feel like they did a great job of upholding T'Challa's legacy multiple times throughout the whole story, really. Every single time it's, they talk to Everett Ross, they talk about how T'Challa saved his life. And then they talk about how T'Challa revealed vibranium to the world. And then they talk about how it affected Namor and the people underwater, and how it led to Riri Williams creating that vibranium detection thing. Stuff like that, really, really cool stuff. And I think when it comes to stuff like that, when it comes to his actions and the full weight of it throughout the MCU, you see that he's still a part of the story. He's still a part of Wakanda, and his actions and his choices have made a long-lasting impact with the Wakandan outreach posts as well throughout the world. I think those are really, really cool glimpses of how T'Challa's choices affected the whole world, And even though he's gone, he's still a part of the story. Not to mention his impact on Okoye, on Shuri, on Queen Ramonda, how it affects Namor and his people, how it affects everything, the politics of things, how they go about getting vibranium. It's stuff like that, It's very, very interesting, and I don't know. It's a perfect example of why Ryan Coogler is so great at what he does, and how he's able to create great moments throughout the film, and how those little moments and things really make a difference, Not to mention how his impact with all of the other tribes, you know what I mean? M'Baku was brought in to the Wakandan circle, the union or the council, because of T'Challa, because of all of them, And not to mention his son with Nakia. And I already spoiled all of this in the last one, all right? So, I haven't listened to it. I haven't listened back to it because I didn't want my thoughts or opinions to change or reflect what I had previously said before. So it's kind of more so focusing on how I felt about it now. And I think this movie really, really does a great job. It balances the action. It does a great job of the comedy. I think that the story itself is actually really, really cool. I like the political aspect, how all the other nations want vibranium, but they're not able to get vibranium, so they're trying to find more vibranium, and thus they have the vibranium detector, and thus we get introduced to Namor and his people. I just feel like it all flowed so well together, and I liked it every single time, I think that they found a new way to do things in a powerful way like that, I'm really impressed with the story that they gave, even though it wasn't the story I felt that they should have done, you know? And I still feel like what we were given was still really great, you know? I think it was so powerful and it made so much sense to the characters, you know? And specifically Shuri, her path throughout this whole story, you know? Her break away from tradition and her inability to believe just the same way as everybody else did, you know? I think that focus, that difference and everything else was just so it made so much sense, you know? I really enjoyed the emotion that the actress who plays Shuri, she does an incredible job of capturing the anger that she has inside of her, capturing her feelings of like, I had my dad, my brother, and my mom are all gone, you know? It's a bad day for the royal family, you know what I mean? It's one after the other, you know, going down, and it's devastating. And she doesn't have the same beliefs as T'Challa did, or as her mom did, as everybody else does, you know. She's absorbed in her lab, you know, creating her technology and developing it and making Wakanda stronger, you know. There's a great piece of dialogue between Queen Ramonda and Shuri where she's asking her like, what about the recreation or like the artificial heart-shaped herb, you know, that she was working on to save T'Challa. And she's telling her that like, what's going on with that? Have we made any progress with that? And she was like, no, I need to focus on other things. And she was like, the heart-shaped herb is made the Black Panther for generations. It's a mantle that's to be passed down from warrior to everybody else and throughout our whole life, through our whole history. And she's like, I wasn't recreating the heart-shaped herb to save the mantle or the legacy of the Black Panther. I was doing it to save my brother. And that just like goes to show how emotional and invested she was in her family, you know, how much she loved and cared for her brother and how much she was willing to fight for him above everything else, you know. She didn't care about the tradition of Wakanda. She didn't care about what it would mean to bring back the heart-shaped herb and to get everybody to, you know, to create a new Black Panther or to create a traditional thing, you know. It was more so like, how can we save him? You know, how can I save him? And it was devastating that it was really, really upsetting that, you know, that heavy of a toll fell on her, you know, to try to save him. And she was unable to do it at the time. I don't, you know, obviously, story-wise, if she had the access to the, what's it called? To the other plant, the other vibranium plant, if she knew about Talokan, if she knew about Talokan and the plants and the stuff there, I think it would have been, what's it called? If she knew about that, if she had access to their plants and to their stuff, they could have, you know, eventually made a cure for him, but things don't always work out like that, you know? It's just sad to see that, like, things take time or change too often, you know? And what you know now is valuable to what could have been back then, you know? So it's stuff like that that's different, you know, and is important and stuff. So when rewatching this movie, there were certain things that I thought I wouldn't like, but I actually did like a lot. Like when I initially saw the movie, I was like, I don't really like the Riri Williams Iron Heart stuff. But then coming back into it, I think that, I mean, I'm a little torn. You know, on the one hand, I think it's cool, her introduction into it. But on the other hand, it's kind of, I don't know, it feels like she doesn't have a whole lot to do other than just be protected or like be taken hostage, She had a cool little intro, you know what I mean, getting kidnapped, but then throughout the rest of the story, it was kind of like Shuri could have done it by herself, I don't know. They kind of make it seem that they're a team, but it didn't feel like that. I don't know. Anyways, I kind of like, I kind of liked it, I kind of didn't, but overall, I think her character or her importance to the overall world and her effects on Wakanda and on Talokan are very important. And so for that reason, I think that it's like she's necessary, but all of the other extra stuff is kind of like, I don't know. I don't know how to feel about it. It just kind of feels a bit, I don't know. I don't want to say out of place, but it just doesn't work so much for me. I don't know. But anyways, when talking about like how Black Panther comes back, how the Black Panther returns, I really like the scene where Shuri confronts Njidaka. Michael B. Jordan comes back. And I always thought it was odd that they redid it in the throne room, how she like swims back up and she like goes into the throne room. But I imagine it was a lot more efficient production wise to do it in that throne room where like they already have the water and the room all set and everything. Like, you know what I mean? Production wise, it's like, oh, it's easy. We just reuse the same thing and we just dim the lights a little bit. We bring back Michael B. Jordan and we have the two of them talk to each other. You know what I mean? It's not as much as it's not as much work as maybe creating a whole CGI, forest with jaguars and panthers. My bad, and whatnot. You know what I mean? But anyways, I really like the talk that the two of them have. And I think it was a pretty bold choice for them to choose Michael B. Jordan to return, or like to have that kind of like shock factor, or that confrontation. It really works well, I think, for Shuri, because she's holding in so much anger. And I think that if she had a peaceful reunion with, say, T'Challa or her mom, it wouldn't have fueled her, Obviously, I think it would have been a lot nicer and a lot kinder, and it wouldn't have given her the choice to do, like, all of the bad stuff or to give in to her anger, But because she sees in Njidaka, he's able to like put all of his feelings and frustrations, or like bring it out of Shuri to the point where she's like, I have to act. I have to kill Namor. I have to do this for my brother, for my mom, for my everything that I've felt and I've built up inside of me. I'm going to take it all out on him, And I think that it works. It really, really does work. And then when she wakes back up, she comes out of it. She's like devastated because she's like, why weren't they there? They weren't there for me, Like T'Challa's father was there for him, you know what I mean? And now she has nothing, It wasn't this peaceful reunion. It wasn't this happy, loving reunion. It was this menacing talk, and it felt like, why are we talking to each other? We're barely related, you know what I mean? We're cousins, but it doesn't work out like that. It sucks, that I have to talk to you, not to T'Challa, not to my mom, not to my dad, but you of all people. And it just feels like it further strengthens her like feelings towards tradition, towards those beliefs. She even admits it to Njidaka that she didn't believe in the afterplane or in the afterworld and in their things like that. And because of that, maybe it's because of those feelings she sees in Jadaka. She thinks differently than everyone else. And so it was just a really powerful moment. And I think that they do an incredible job of capturing it and letting us know that this is how she feels. It shows us and it tells us that this is what, this is how she, this is what she always really wanted to do. She always wanted to lash out on the world. She always wanted to set the world on fire, burn down the whole world. You know what I'm saying? Because she was right there. She tried to save him and it didn't work. It all felt like a huge failure. It's painful to see. And I don't know, I just feel like it's easy to see her pain and to understand why she's choosing what she's choosing. And even though she gets some pretty wise counsel from M'Baku about her feelings, about how she wants to go to war with Talokan, with Namor, it just isn't going to work, It's not what her mom wanted for her, and it's not what he wants for her. But she still wants it, and she's going to take it, any opportunity she can. So then we see her arrive as the Black Panther, and I thought that was really cool. I rewatched that moment a few times where she punches the armor and it goes flying back. That was really cool. How she, her power and her strength, I think it's really, really cool. And then the fight between her and Namor, I think is, man, it's really a show of great resilience, and her ability to fight him head on, you know what I mean? Take him on, even though she feels like maybe a bit inadequate when it comes to fighting, but it's really cool to see her. It's really cool to see a female superhero really go like, get some hits in, you know what I mean? She was getting her ass beat by Namor. And I was like, yo, Namor, take it easy, you know what I'm saying? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, he was really going at her, And then he stabs her into the stomach. Dang, that was crazy. That was insane. And then, what's it called? She, like, blows him up. Like, it just goes nuts, So, overall, I think that this movie really has a great story, and I think that Ryan Coogler really directed and wrote the film in the best way possible moving forward, given obviously the devastating personal circumstances that happened in the real world, Obviously Chadwick Boseman's passing was terrible, It was a huge shock, and it was devastating that that happened, And so for them to finally move on to the storytelling, into the world aspect of Black Panther, his legacy still lives on through Shuri, through Okoye, through Nakia, through his son, through his actions of the MCU with Vibranium, with the politics, with the outreach posts. All of it is just, it's very, very important. And yeah, they created a really great story, a very emotional and impactful story. And it was balanced so well, to me at least. I think that they did a great job of mixing everything together and making the story flow organically, And then when it gets a little slow or intimate, it feels necessary. And then when it starts to pick up, it feels a bit, it's exactly where you want it to be. It's intense, it's suspenseful, it's fast-paced. It works, So Yeah, this movie's still great, still holds up. And I'm still waiting for the promise of Namor and Wakanda uniting against the surface world, you know? We'll have to see, but so far, as far as I can tell, um, from what I see and what I can tell from everything that's happened, it looks like Namor and Shuri are going to go up to fight with the Avengers from now, So we'll have to see how that works out. But I'm interested, I think that Black Panther is one of those like is a very important part of the MCU, especially with Vibranium. So we're gonna have to see how things move forward with them. But until then, yeah, Black Panther: Wakanda Forever, still a great movie, still really good. Pays great homage to Chadwick Boseman, does really heartfelt and so many great moments. I don't think that anybody who really watches this movie is like, there were bad moments in the movie. They can only think about the positive or the good moments. And once you start thinking of one good moment, you're like, oh, this was also a good moment, and this moment, and this moment. So it's built up of consistent scenes and moments that you really enjoy and that you like. So definitely rewatchable. Yeah, I like this movie. I liked it a lot more rewatching it, seeing how it all folds in, and maybe noticing some details I didn't the first time. So, anyways, when you're watching Black Panther: Wakanda Forever revisited, really, really feel the connection between the characters and how it all flows. How T'Challa's choices and his impact on Wakanda and the world flow. And that's what makes that first Black Panther movie so iconic and so important. So, yeah, I'm really excited for the future of Black Panther and whatever they choose to do, but we'll have to wait and see until that time comes. So, anyways, thank you guys so much for listening. I'll talk to you guys all next time. Thank you.